a wise scholar and student of Jewish history and Jewish survival, made an interesting observation. He said that the Jews kept the Sabbath, but that the Sabbath had kept the Jews. This insight suggests a parallel thought. The Jews kept their rabbis, and the rabbis kept the Jews. Our rabbis have been with us across the long centuries of the Great Dispersion, in our wanderings along the pathways of the roads of the diaspora, in the shtetl, in the towns, in the cities, in the one-room cheders and the famous yeshivas. And the rabbis have always been central to the spirit and the continuation of the Jewish community. I'd like to think that if it were possible to go back to other centuries and other lands, that we would find a Rabbi Bornstein there, taking care of the spiritual and the temporal needs of his people and his congregation. It was a rabbi in one of the concentration camps whose calendar of the mind told him that it was Hanukkah. He pierced his fingers and formed a bloody menorah on the window pane of the barrack, so that his fellow Jews would remember. And the lights of Hanukkah and hope could be lit, if not with candles and with a menorah, then in their hearts and minds. The rabbi of Anatevke, of course, was fictional. But the love and the respect and the honor given him were not the product of a scriptwriter's imagination. They were a very true reflection of the emotions felt in 1,001 other real life Anatevkes. And these feelings of respect and admiration and love are mirrored in what we here at B'nai Israel feel for our Rabbi Bornstein. And these are sentiments that spring from deep in the Yiddish neshama of B'nai Israel and the Tidewater Jewish communities. Tonight, instead of a liquid toast, I'd like to offer a verbal one in the form of a poem I wrote many years ago. Its intent was and is to celebrate and to honor all of our rabbis, past and present. But tonight, I drink in spirit, if not literally with spirits. I'll raise my voice instead of my cup to honor Rabbi Israel Bornstein, a quintessential and revered rabbi for all seasons. Now if I can just find a poem, it's in here somewhere. Should have had it ready. The title of the poem is Rabbi. Learned link to long ago, hardy guide toward tomorrow, teacher of Torah, guardian of Mishnah and Gemara, beacon in diaspora. Rabbi, witness to the tears of 1,000 years, to Kiev and Kishinev and Babi Yar, to Bergen-Belsen, Buchenwald and Auschwitz-Birkenau, to hell, still somehow steadfast believing, in pale and pogrom, higher plan perceiving. Rabbi, armor of talus and tefillin, armed with timeless truth of Talmud, wisdom of ages, scholars, sages, martyrs' blood on history's pages. Rabbi, Calm and courage come crisis, strength of serenity in storm, balm of compassion kindling kindness, learning's light in ghetto darkness. Rabbi, bearer of lore of Mamiloshin, gentle Yiddish laughter's lesson, friend and discreet, sharer of shtetl's simple simchas, misty memories bittersweet, patient soul of Cheda's olive base, sagas of sorrow furrowed on your face, Córdoba, Vilna, Salonika, Lodz, learned link to long ago. Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi Bornstein.
See a video about the very synagogue that we're commemorating tonight. The history of B'nai Israel and the Eastern European Jews in Norfolk is the story of Orthodoxy in Hampton Roads. Two institutions that have long-standing relationships with the Jewish community have very generously co-sponsored tonight's film. H.D. Oliver Funeral Apartments and the Bank of the Commonwealth deserve a great deal of thanks for making it possible to document our history. Thank you very much and enjoy.
Rabbi Joseph Schechter was ordained at Ner Israel Rabbinical College in Baltimore, Maryland, an institution which seems to be the yeshiva of choice for the pulpit of B'nai Israel. As previously mentioned, Rabbi Bornstein and I studied there also. Rabbi Schechter and B'nai Israel began their careers together, for his first pulpit was that of B'nai Israel at its inception in 1947. He served until 1950 and was so loved and revered that he had the distinction of being invited back as the rabbi in 1953. In 1949, Rabbi Schechter had the foresight to bring a young, energetic Danish rabbi from his yeshiva, Rabbi Israel Bornstein, to assist him as Cantor and assistant rabbi. In 1961, Rabbi Schechter became the director of community relations for Ner Israel Rabbinical College, and he currently lives in Florida with his wife. Parenthetically, he's also my sister-in-law's uncle. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor to call upon Rabbi Joseph Schechter.
Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I think we may say with the psalmist, Zeh hayom mosa Hashem nagila v'nismecha bo. This is the day which God has made. Let us rejoice and be merry in it. And we could also say, perhaps without enunciating the Shem HaMefurash, Shechiyanu v'kimonu v'giyanu lazman hazeh, that you have sustained us in life and brought us to this day to observe this glorious event. I want to express my gratitude and my thankfulness to the committee for inviting Mr. Schechter and myself to participate on this glorious occasion. In this age and culture where the syndrome, "What have you done for me lately?" becomes the hallmark of recognition, it is nice to be remembered. It is nice to be recalled. And this evening has already seemingly developed a nostalgic theme of memories of the past. And as I grow older, I too become more nostalgic. And I want to say to you that in the course of this evening, I shed some tears as people whom I hadn't seen in many years greeted me, embraced me, and Francis. And did you recognize me, Rabbi Schechter? In many instances I did, in some instances I didn't. But the evening brings to mind many happenings and occurrences that go back to the early days of this synagogue. And while we're celebrating 50 years in honor of Rabbi Bornstein, I just want to indulge, if I may, momentarily, for a few moments, of some personal remembrances and recollections. You know, I had the distinction of bringing to Norfolk the first male-born son of a rabbi in 40 years. It was quite an event. And Rabbi Bornstein had occasion, when my son came here, one of my sons, to conduct an NCSY weekend, that the last time he remembers my son was lying flat on his back on the 8th day of his life, looking up at the ceiling. The recollections and the remembrances are such that when we speak of the B'nai Israel congregation and the United Orthodox Synagogue as playing a tremendous role in the furtherance of Yiddishkeit in this area, undoubtedly, it was the rabbinic leadership as reflected both in myself and Rabbi Bornstein that founded the Hebrew Academy of Tidewater. You know, when you become affluent and you become strong, there's a tendency not to want to look back to the early days of pain and anguish, of trial and tribulation. And there was Rabbi Bornstein and I working together, pounding the pavements, literally, to make sure that the teachers would be paid by the end of the week. It was sweat and tears and often very sleepless nights. I must say, Mrs. Schechter sits here, and I remember seeing her in the kitchen making sandwiches for the children, organizing the PTA. It's 40 years, but 40 years that began with a great deal of dedication and commitment and devotion. Oh, I remember the fish markets on Bank Street. I remember the furniture stores on Church Street. I remember the fuel store at 25th and Church. I remember the delicatessens on Cawley Avenue. I remember Cawley in Front Street. I remember the auto parts store on 20th Street. All these things I remember because these were my parents. These were those who I, as a young man with a young wife, came, they embraced us. Shalavicha v'yagetcha, ask your father, and he will tell you. He will tell you of the Mesiras Nefesh that went into the building of this institution and the institutions which have become part of Jewish life. There's a mikveh in Norfolk. We built the mikveh, Rabbi Bornstein and I did. We built a mikveh. You know what a mikveh is? There's a law which prescribes that if there's only enough money to buy a Torah or build a mikveh, you build a mikveh before you buy a Torah. So we did that years ago. Zachor Yamos Olam, Binu Shnos Dor V'Dor. Remember the days of yore. Understand generation to generation. And here, I must say, when my claim to fame is bringing Rabbi Bornstein to this community. When I first met Rabbi Bornstein as a Talmud in Yeshivas Ner Yisrael, as the video so indicated, one could see a Ben Torah. One could see a person with the qualities of Torah, the character of Torah, edel, still, gelassen, possessed of a certain calmness, a certain respect centered around him. Talmidim would come to him, the students in the Beis Medrash, and ask him shaylas. A shvera Gemara, a hard piece of Gemara, go to Rabbi Bornstein, he'll explain it to you. As one of the members of this congregation once said, he's a rabbi's rabbi. Though that's his potential, that's his skill, that's where he excels. Learning Torah and reflecting the midos of Torah and in all those beautiful attributes that we admire in a Ben Torah, in a character and a son of Torah. You know, it has been said that the relationship of a rabbi to a congregation is like a chassan to a Gala. And furthermore, the marriage of some 47 years has gone through so much change, as Rabbi Bornstein so beautifully expressed. We speak of ben chamishim la'eit, so when you reach the age of 50, you're qualified to give advice. If the shul has reached and attained to this age of 50, through its leadership in Rabbi Bornstein, it is capable of eitzah, it is capable of giving advice. And advice means the ability to analyze and to weigh and to measure and to understand and to peer keenly into the affairs of a congregation. Indeed, as Rabbi Bornstein says, the shul has become his child, a child that he has loved and he has shared his life with. And at times it hasn't been easy. I know that. I know that there were difficulties. Health-wise, we at Ner Israel were deeply, deeply concerned. We came. We wanted to make sure that Rabbi Salka would be well. And we have